We're gonna call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, members of the Standards, Specifications and Details Committee. The meeting is now called to order. For those around the table, just reminder to turn off the mic with the little button before you speak so the people online can hear us. Those on Zoom, if you don't mind repeating your name before you speak so we can keep track of the minutes. The MAG public comment process that's allowed members of the public to comment on items that fall under MAG jurisdiction. If you want to make comments at today's meeting, please fill out the request form. I know we have some guests in the audience today. Gordon can assist with any questions you may have. For those that park here or that are new, don't forget to validate your parking with the stamp on the corner. And there's assisted hearing devices if they are needed. Next item is our call to the audience. This is the opportunity for anybody to make a comment for items that are not on the agenda. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience. I didn't receive any requests. Did you, Gordon?
I did not receive any online comments.
Right. MAG also provides the opportunity for members to submit comments via the MAG website. Those comments need to be received 2 hours before the meeting so we can share it with the committee, but I'm not aware that we've received any comments online either, right, Gordon?
No comments were received online.
All right. So before we get started, I do want to put somebody on the spot that is new to the table. Alex, I know you took the place for Hunter as our member from the Materials Committee. If you want to kind of just briefly introduce yourself.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I know many of you. My name is Alex Carter. I work for Vulcan Materials. I've been with Vulcan since an asset swap in 2015. I am the registered engineer that stamps all of our mixed designs, and I know we've worked together quite a bit in different other committees and other capacities, so I look forward to representing industry here. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Nice to have you on board.
And real quick, Jose, I don't think he's here to replace Hunter. He was Greg Gromberg's spot, right? On the asphalt, because we want an asphalt guy and a concrete guy.
All right.
Hunter replaced Jeff Hearn, right? So we got a concrete and asphalt guy.
Yeah.
So you are taking Rob's place.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Thanks for the correction, Brian. Next item on our agenda. Graciously, our vice chair is accompanying us today. We do want to recognize, hopefully he can take a minute to stand up and receive a recognition for his participation as the chair of the committee for the previous 2 years. He did a great job.
Appreciate it.
It has been a very tough act to follow. He set a high standard, so.
Vice chair.
If I can say one thing, Jose,
Yes,
it's been a pleasure chairing with this group. I mean, these guys are amazing. You guys, there's a lot of talent in here. I really, I brag about this group all the time. So thank you.
We're welcome to have you, and thank you for agreeing to be in my vice chair my first year as well. So with that, we'll move on to the next item, the approval of the last meeting, January 7th meeting minutes. I think these were shared on the agenda packets when they were distributed. Does anybody have any question in the of the MAC member committees? Or is there anybody from the public that wants to make a comment on the meeting minutes? Just take a few minutes to glance through it and let me know. And Gordon, just to confirm, I think you incorporated any revisions that we received through the reviewer, right?
Yes, that's correct. I sent the draft minutes out to the chairs and case sponsors for their review and incorporated any of the changes that they had. But if there's any that we missed that other members have noticed, let us know and we'll get those corrections made as well. Also, while I have the mic, we have just a bare minimum for our quorum, so please try and stay for the entire meeting if at all possible. Thank you.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the meeting minutes as written.
Chair, I'll approve second motion.
All right. I think with that, Gordon, we can probably go into roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Let's just go straight down the row, starting with ADOT.
Hi, this is Mike Dunbliker.
Got a yes?
Hey, Mike, can you confirm if you approve the minutes?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Avondale?
Yeah, Jim Badowich from Avondale, yes.
Thank you. Buckeye?
Afternoon, everyone. Josh Ford from the city of Buckeye. Yes.
Chandler?
Warren White, yes.
El Mirage?
Thomas Duff, El Mirage, City of El Mirage, yes.
Thank you. Lawrence? Gilbert?
Yes.
Glendale?
Yes.
Goodyear? Maricopa County?
Yes, David Fritz for Maricopa County.
Thank you. Mesa?
Yes.
Peoria? Yeah, Peoria, not present. Phoenix?
Yes.
Scottsdale? Scottsdale is not present. Surprise?
Robert Fields, City Surprise, yes.
Thank you. Tempe? Tolleson? Or Youngtown? Looks like it's unanimous.
All right. We'll move forward into our cases. The first, our rollover case from last year. Revisions to sections 326 and 719. Design and placement of polymer modified asphalt concrete. Alex, can you give us an update on that?
Absolutely. A lot of work's been put in here by a lot of members of this group. We've had quite a bit of interest. Worked very closely, especially with the city of Phoenix and some of the East Valley agencies. There were a couple minor revisions here to some language and some clarification, specifically regarding the performance analysis and aging protocols. We think this is a pretty concise document as written, and we were going to move it forward if the committee saw fit for a vote next month.
Does anybody have any question on this case? I know we discussed it quite a few times. Or if any comments that are coming up on your heads right now. I will say, Alex, as I was reviewing this, there are some comments that I'll get with Parnian at the lab. Probably just to clarify previously the engineering analysis had language that needed to be done by a professional engineer and all that stuff, where we probably want to replicate some of that. And also, I think the qualifications for the lab performing the performance testing, so.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The qualifications, Jose, or I think we put language like if they were on your approved list, or because you guys had approved list of labs is what we've done in the past.
Yeah, something along those lines. I just didn't
Okay.
read that in the performance testing section.
Okay.
So,
Because I think we might be limited, right?
There are not a lot of labs performing that. So
Um,
yeah, that is definitely, those tests are pretty specialized.
yes. But because of that, right, we kind of want to make sure that the lab performing those tests knows what they're doing, because they got very sensitive. So.
Yeah, she's been at all the meetings with us, so anything you get with her, we can in our next meeting kind of
Yeah, just
tweak whatever language they want.
we can probably tweak it. And if there's any other members that have any comments, hopefully they can get back to you, Alex, and hammer it out on the next materials working group, and we can put it to potential action on the next meeting.
Excellent. Yeah, we'd love to see this move forward. There's been quite a bit of interest, so I think this is great. Thank you.
All right. Next, the first case for 2026 miscellaneous correction. I think there is no other item on the first item, Gene, correct? I think we presented that last time. The deletion of cadmium plating from the specification. I know at one point there was some discussion to make this another case. I just want to confirm whether or not it's gonna stay as a miscellaneous correction.
Yeah, I would request that we leave it as a miscellaneous correction because we're just deleting an outdated process. The zinc coating, from what I found, the zinc coating is the galvanized process that's already called out in MAG. So being that cadmium hasn't been used in so long, we can just delete it out. It's not even available. I checked with many of the suppliers, local suppliers, and they said, yeah, they haven't supplied cadmium in quite some time.
All right. Simple change. There are no other miscellaneous corrections for this so far. Next case, revisions to details 206 -1 and 206-2, concrete scupper. Gene, can you?
Yeah,
interpret, please?
so that one in particular, I reached out to industry, asked them to run, asked Brian Gallimore here to run it through his group, see if I was on the right page with how I was interpreting the detail. When I was chair, I got a few calls. I received a few calls on clarification about that 1 inch at the gutter pan. I ran it through Brian's group. They came back with some responses basically in line, perfectly parallel with what I'm illustrating here. So it's just to clarify the measurements basically. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
No,
we
we're
were
talking about the scupper.
on the
So this is
scupper. I'm sorry. Let me
the
retract.
extension of
that.
the safety rail on this.
Yeah, so this one here, we're having a problem in Glendale with the scuppers falling short. The way it's currently written is that it stops at the edge of the spillway. We're using a lot of riprap channels, so the scupper is not extending beyond that fall point. I'm sorry, the safety rail isn't extending past that vertical drop. So we just want to carry that language over to capture all the details, to capture the, what is it? It's going to be the 206-3, which, you know, clearly shows the rail going across, but what's happening is they're just stopping it right at that angle point on the back of the scupper. So if we, on the first detail, on the 206-1, if we can just show those the two weld plates, the direct bury, the direct bury would be per I think detail 145. And then we just change one of the notes, slightly modify one of the notes there to extend beyond the vertical drop per detail 206-3. That would help us out a lot in the field, not having to have contractors come back and then have to spend time out in the field trying to, you know, sort through all this. It would really clarify things I think it's fair for us, and I think it's fair for the contractors because they don't want to come out and do this again, mob twice to go weld on additional rails. So that's what really brought this case up. The inspectors kind of pounded on me for it.
Just a question for you, Gene. Now, so the extension of that rail, even beyond the actual fall off, because there may be landscape area where you're actually meeting grade at that point, right?
Right.
Just for consistency.
And that's why I left it open as beyond the vertical drop. Yeah, so that we're capturing that vertical drop. Now, the drawing clearly shows it at the expansion joint or right there within, you know, adjacent to the expansion joint, which, you know, if you want to fine tune that language a little tighter, we can. I personally, we think it works pretty good the way it is. Beyond can be interpreted, though. I totally understand beyond can, I mean, where are we gonna stop, you know? When we get to Chandler, you know?
We touched on this a little bit. 30-inch measurement that
Warren.
was brought up.
Yes, what would,
Oh, thank you, Brian. Yeah,
yeah, there was a discussion at the ADA working group of what would trigger or what really should trigger the safety rail, right? So that we are not improperly adding safety rail where it's not required because it becomes a maintenance headache at one point.
Well-
But I think in this particular case, I think the intent is kind of showing what's already on detail 206-3.
Sure, I would agree with that 100%. And, you know, our whole outlook on this is behind sidewalk for landscape, we generally have a 1-inch reveal, then you have your landscape rock. When you have anything more than that, you're opening yourself up to liability, right? Wheelchair goes off, tumble down. I think if we do anything, if we modify the same language anymore, we would maybe just say, instead of beyond the vertical drop, we could capture the vertical drop and maybe to the expansion joints, because that's generally where the wings of our riprap channel stop, is right about there, and we try to capture that vertical drop. And the way it's drawn on -2. Oh, I'm sorry. No, not 2.
Are you looking at -1 or -3?
The way it's drawn on -3, it's drawn right at the vertical supports there, right at the spillway. But then the note, the note says between the spillway exterior walls. And that's my challenge, is I need to get beyond those spillway exterior walls because I don't have any. So I need to just capture the vertical drop. And that's really that's the motivation behind the change.
Question for you, Gene, if you don't mind. So the note you're proposing says beyond the vertical drop. Is there an elevation drop at which the safety rail becomes necessary? Because I'm thinking street side, you've got a 6-inch drop everywhere. In no safety rail, obviously. So, because you had mentioned, if you normally have a 1-inch reveal on the backside of the sidewalk to landscaping, anything more liability. But is there a certain elevation change where the safety rail becomes necessary versus not?
I don't know if there's a hard, fast rule. I know anything over 1 inch could be an issue, potentially. I could look into that and come back and see where I can find where that's derived from. But really, the goal is to keep a wheelchair from going off into that riprap, right? That's our goal.
Sure. I can just see people questioning, okay, what's the vertical drop? What does that mean? If it drops 3 inches, is it a vertical drop or is it
No, that's
just
good point.
normal?
Yeah, so that's kind of what the discussion we were having in the working group. And I think there was an initial discussion, I don't want to say consensus yet, that is more than the 1-inch drop that you would have against landscape, right? Because all sidewalk has a recess to the adjacent decomposed granite. So that's really not a trigger for safety rail. I think we were talking about, there's a couple of different municipalities. I know the city of Phoenix has a particular detail wherein safety rail would apply. And it's governed by both the slope on the back slope or the potential vertical difference. But I think for this particular case, it's good that you bring it up, Brian. We're talking about the best language to describe what's already going there. It may be at I don't know that I would use the expansion joint either as a measurement, but at the beginning of the transition of the scupper.
Or to the limit, to the limits of the asset or to the limits of the scupper.
I would say because that right now is at the beginning, at the end of tapers, right? That probably should be driving to make sure it's in line with 206, with that street, right?
Yeah, let me look at how I can do that. And that is a good point that
Ryan
Ryan brought up.
It's gonna come up.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I was trying to remember in our discussions, somebody put in the feed and I meant to take a note of it, but it wasn't OSHA. I was always thinking it was OSHA, but it was, they found it in another design standard where the 30-inch was the stated
Yeah, 30 inches is building code.
building code, but it was beyond building code. It was something else. It was not, it's a highway design or something. What is the other? ASHTO.
Oh,
Yes, ASHTO is what it was stated. So maybe check out ASHTO and see what you think of that language too. So,
Yeah, that, I'm sorry, but that's probably more for like your head walls, I would imagine. Yeah.
And I think I'm with you, Jen. I think it's just, we need to clarify this particular scupper detail. I think we were looking into potentially modifying the actual safety rail itself or its application. That detail, I think 145, we'd be having the conversation about the drop, but if you disconnect the limits, the required limits from the vertical drop, then that falls out of question.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
This is Peter. I had a question or a thought on this. Is it okay for me to talk? I can't tell very well if I'm communicating.
Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, good. So this gets me to think about, this is an issue that really, I mean, I think you're dealing with the scupper issue correctly, but do we have a specific issue that should be addressed behind the sidewalk in all cases? It sounds like certain municipalities do address it, certain don't. Is this something that, with the appearance of a slope behind the sidewalk would require some kind of protection system? And I'm just throwing that out, irrespective of this case. Is that something this committee would be interested in?
Yeah, I think.
I believe what he's trying to convey is if there's a slope or a retention right behind the sidewalk.
Correct. Yeah, correct. That was the idea, that if there's something else, is there something, I'm thinking like on roadways where there's, you always have that clear space on the side. Is there something similar to that we'd want to explore with sidewalks where, you know, you don't want a retention basin like, 6 inches off the edge of a sidewalk. Sure, you've got that 1 inch drop, and then 6 inches away, you got a retention slope starting that would be a similar problem or something. I'm just kind of exploring this concept when it was mentioned that, well, where do we stop it? Well, I don't know if we really define where protection is needed.
Yeah, I think you're correct, Peter. I don't think the max specifications or the details address where it is needed. It just provides the detail itself. And I think to your question, you're asking whether or not the committee should explore a detail for the actual, I guess, design or placement for those drop safety rail.
Yeah, the thought was, the discussion was, where do you end it at? Well, isn't that dependent on the slope conditions on behind the sidewalk? Again, is this a design issue we shouldn't be getting into? Just that thought, it kind of hit me that, well, where would it end? I don't know. It depends on what it looks like behind the sidewalk.
So, Mr. Sheriff, for this particular case, this is specific to the scupper.
Yes.
I think what Peter's talking about, we can put under, that'd fall under a different agenda item probably, or a potential case. But for this particular case, I'm going to look into that vertical drop that Mr. Nichols pointed out and try to get some clarification on that for the scupper specifically.
I think the only thing I would say, Peter, as the outer right-of-way committee is working through a lot of the scupper and spillway details, if the need does arise to really refine, I think detail 145 to provide more, I guess, specification of where is required, then we will have to explore it at that point.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll put this as an agenda for the outside right of way next committee meeting. We can talk it more later.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Next item. Or, I'm sorry, does anybody else have any other question or comments on the scupper detail? Nope.
Mr. Chairman, this is Josh Ford, City of Buckeye.
Hey, Josh.
If we're cracking open this detail, one comment I would have is that slope on top and the view you're looking at right now shows 1.5%. I know with the sidewalk detail, we had modified that to say target slope 1.5% from top of curb. And then also on the 230 sidewalk detail, we have a note that talks about slope tolerance, 0.5% to 2%. Proposing that we maybe include some similar language about target or giving some type of tolerance, because I know we dealt with a contentious scupper issue before where there was lots of back and forth over the slope on top, the slope on bottom. And just looking to maybe make this consistent with what we're doing with detail 230.
Great point, Josh. Gene, is that something you can look at to see what the slope callouts is for the sidewalk detail and just match that so it's
Yeah.
consistent?
Yeah, because right now S equals 1.5% on the 206-2 detail.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll make sure it stays consistent with 230. Thank you for that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Next case, 2603, revisions to details 220 and 220-2, curb and gutter. Gene, this is your case as well?
All right,
Walk us through it.
Mr. Chair, I was so excited to get to this case. I couldn't wait. All right, so this is the case that I received many phone calls on, well, a few phone calls on as chair, just looking for clarification on some of these measurements. This is also the case that I handed over to the Association of General Contractors and had them look at it, and their response was consistent with what I'm showing here on these pages. They were in 100% agreement with these notes. So it's just simply to clarify this. I don't think this warrants miscellaneous correction. I think it warrants an actual case in case anybody wants to add more to it. So with that, open it up.
And I guess if I'm interpreting this correctly, a different way to describing this is that the lip of the gutter is 1 inch higher than the flow line.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
And Brian, just to double, we're not gonna be rejecting any shoes out there.
No, I don't think so. I mean, most of them, they were worried about the bottom. The bottom's usually cut flat. You gotta have that. The real critical one is your designer. Like when they put 2% in cross slope in your roadway, and they design to a flow line, which is an inch lower than your lip of the gutter, but we're paving to the lip of the gutter a 1/4 inch above. So it throws your slope all off, right? And we've had that argument with designers saying, hey, look at the detail, we gotta pave a 1/4 inch above. And you're designing from center line to flow line. It doesn't match, right?
And your mic's not on. Mr. Chair, that was the designers that Brian had mentioned. I was getting the calls from the designers saying, hey, I need this measurement. I need to clarify this measurement. That's really what prompted this. But Brian's 100% right is, you don't want to extrapolate your slope all the way through the gutter pan. I guess you could, but we need to identify what that slope is. Whether it's extrapolated through for the crown of roadway or for the slope of the roadway, or we identify it as 1 inch. In this, it's 1 inch. Everybody's building it as 1 inch. That's what I wanted to see what industry was doing, and it's consistent with what the industry is doing. Just missing measurements as far as I can tell.
And as I'm looking through the case, is this just being carried across all the different types of curb and gutter details?
No, that's correct. Any ones that were missing the measurement, that is correct.
Based on Brian's comment, are we thinking of flattening out the bottom of those? Actually changing the drawing and flattening it out, or?
So if I may, I don't want to get into that because then we're going to throw yields off potentially. The way it's drawn right now, they are keeping some kind of, when they grade that road, they're probably grading, they can grade through the curb and gutter subgrade with some slope. But really the trick is I don't want to throw their yields. If I make that flat, that little wedge might not be much over 10 feet, but through a whole subdivision, it's going to add up.
You could make that 1 inch at the bottom optional.
That's what I found out when I asked everybody, right? Some of them do, some of them complained about yield.
Right.
Some says we just cut it flat or trim it. They're using a trimmer in front of the curb machine.
And I did get some pushback from contractors. I had reached out separate from you, and they had mentioned the same thing as their yield to go up. I mean, they'll have to adjust their pricing accordingly.
Yeah, and ultimately, right, I don't think that concrete is needed. My personal opinion is just,
I don't see, Mr. Chair, I don't see any problem with having a slope as long as you stay consistent with that 6 inches. You know, you keep your thickness, you don't lose your thickness. That's really the key. And obviously your flow line hits grade.
yeah, obviously the critical measurement is the flow line, right? I guess to address your point, right, we could make it 6 inch minimum, right? I mean, that's really what the critical thing is.
Yeah, I can certainly look at modifying that, just 6 inch minimum.
Yes.
I mean, to me, it's not really a big issue, but if you got people complaining on both sides, and what we care about is the 1 inch at the flow line up to the lip of gutter, and we care about the thickness of the concrete, everything else, do what you want, right?
So, yeah, and just to clarify, I never got any real complaints. It was more questions. What is this measurement for design purposes? Constructability, when I had opened it up to saying, hey guys, is this subgrade level with earth? Or are we doing a 1 inch cant on this thing or batter on this? The response that I got was, well, if I make it level, my yields go up. If that's the way the committee wants to move, if we want to go ahead and while we're modifying this 6 inch minimum, I'm totally open to that.
Yeah, I've personally never had the question come up, but
Now that you're chair, you may.
you never know. That is right. You never know. No, I would say just explore the 6 inch minimum and see if we can fit it in. Doesn't require a lot of redesign of this whole thing.
That's correct.
I remember a detail that we worked on last year that also had a curb detail on it. And at the time, we're talking about either fixing that one or taking that off. I don't remember the detail number now, but you might want to look at that as well.
Oh, the alley.
Yeah, the alleyway.
The alleyway driveway. I know, but that's a road curve. I don't know if it calls it out.
All right, thank you. That's all I have on this case.
Anyone else has any other comment or question?
Mr. Chair, this is Josh Ford. I agree with this case. Prior to being at the city, I used to do roadway design in the consulting world. And yeah, when you're trying to figure out your gutter profiles for your roadway, you should take your standard 2% slope on your asphalt, and then that gets you to the edge, but then you need that drop from the lip of asphalt to your flow line to really come up with an accurate gutter profile. And it was a question when I was in the consulting world doing design of, well, what is that drop? And try and interpolate it and figure it out from the detail in the bottom of the slope. So I think adding that inch will give some clarity, and just make it clear that, hey, overall from asphalt to gutter flow line, it is a 1/10 of a foot drop. I'll note that under the roll curve and gutter detail, that's illustrated in terms of the distance from the lip of gutter to the flow line drop. So this would be consistent with that level of detail and just, I think, give clarity to certainly designers. So I think this is a good add.
The other, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may, the other comment on the mountable curb and gutter type F. There is a mention, so this one's kind of odd because it gives you a gutter pan cross slope of 1 inch, well, 1 inch over the run over 30 minus 13 or 30 minus 13. But then also on the bottom, it gives you for the foundation or the subgrade, it gives you 1.25 inches. I don't know if that was a typo or how that works, but it doesn't look consistent or right to me.
You know, that goes back to the earlier question, Gene, whether the bottom line was to the angle point or all the way to the back of the curve, right? And maybe because this is a wider overall, it's a 2.5 foot curve and gutter as opposed to 2 feet. That's why it's a little, that difference between the heel, the back of the curve and gutter, and the bottom is 1 inch.
Because the line goes a little further,
Yeah, but
basically.
it is really hard to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I was trying to wrap my head around that. But the questions, you know, back to the questions I had was relative to the gutter pan, nothing underneath the subgrade or for the subgrade.
Gene, I think that same question applies still on type A. The 1 inch lip that we're talking about goes from flow line to the lip of gutter. But the 1 inch at the bottom appears to go from the back of the curb to the line, you know, the lip. So those lines technically aren't parallel, right? They have different slopes.
Type A, it's not drawn to the back of curb. It's actually drawn just slightly below the flow line or the radius. We can make that consistent if we need to. Yeah, I might need a little assistance with this one.
Yeah, I think one of the tricky things is your extension lines normally have a gap, but at that such a slight slope, where do you stop that gap without running into the line?
So the gutter pan originally, the line originally stopped for the unmarked for type A, right underneath the gutter pan. That line stopped basically at 12 inches, just short of the broom finish. And then you go into the shiner. The line never extended through the shiner to the flow line, which I thought was kind of odd. So I wasn't around when this detail was originally put together. I mean, I was around, but I just wasn't involved. So if any committee members have any insight on this, I'd like to hear it.
So I do remember some of this.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. That's the disadvantage of being old. No, I do remember some of this. The ratio, the 1 1/4 comes from the ratio of 30 inches over 24 inches. That's as simple as it is. It was just ratioed out. So if you look at the standard one, which is 24 inches, you look at that one, it's 30 inches. That's all it came from. And it was just a thinking that, well, it's just easier to do it that way. But I see the rationale that you don't have to do it that way. That's all it came from. I'm trying to remember, what was the other question on the the line not going all the way through? That was a visualization thing. That was could it be seen? So you can see a lot of those don't go all the way through because, well, it was a drawing detail issue. Not that it was not meant to go all the way. It just was hard to see it. You'll notice that on the bottom batter also, the bottom one also, it doesn't go all the way through. It's just a visualization thing.
So the bottom subgrade line for the 1 inch, that's supposed to carry all the way through the back.
Yeah,
back
that's correct. Yep.
So yeah, I see the ratio then.
Yeah, that's the ratio. So that was the rationale behind it. It was not that it was necessary. It was visually seeing it on the screen, and I think you're right. We should probably just continue these to where they belong, and I don't see a reason to have to go to 1 1/4. It was just, again, to keep the thickness, as long as the thickness, I think that was the point that was made, is the thickness is all we care about. We don't really care what it looks like on the bottom.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's what I remember.
Wow, it's great having dinosaurs, isn't it?
You got me for a few more years. Oh,
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Peter.
So
okay.
Gene, we go back to the idea that just get rid of the bottom 1 inch altogether and just call it 6-inch minimum. And then you don't even have to worry about where the leader goes to. And is it the back of the curb? Is it the flow line or anything like that? And you simplify the whole detail.
Yeah, well, I'll let the committee, Mr. Chair, I'd like to see the committee chew on that for a little bit
Yeah.
and see if,
Sure about it, because then I don't know if we will end up raising a future question, right? If there's a pattern or an angle or slope on the bottom of that, what is that supposed to be? It hasn't been an issue, but maybe it wouldn't tweak it as much, but do clarify. But yeah, I guess we can talk about it, and if anybody else has any comment for the future, I think Mike, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of dimensions on here. Just with regards to, I took a look at a picture at some of ADOT's details, and I'm not saying they're perfect, but they have tables on there that specifically call out gutter depths. Just to sole purpose is just to remove some of the dimension strings and so forth and provide some clarity and consistency and less interpretation. Just a suggestion to consider.
it's a good idea.
Thank you, Mike.
One thing, Mr. Chair, before we move on, I will reconvene with Brian to run it through his group and see if there's going to be any opposition from or any challenges from the construction standpoint. I don't want to throw a wrench into what they're already doing and have them have to retool, especially for their slip machines or slip forms. So.
I noticed something that's a little bit different between type A and type C. The 6-inch dimension, if you're dimensioning the concrete, we might want to move that dimension in type C as well to kind of match. You see that on the right side? It's going down to
Yeah, to
the bottom instead of.
Yeah. You see that, Gene?
Yeah, I do now. Thank you.
Yeah, but it technically goes to the leader that is supposed to be pointing all the way to the back of the.
It's just a cat issue.
Yeah.
It's the wrong line. Good night.
Mr. Chair, each case is never as simple as it appears on the surface.
They all grow legs. They all grow legs. While you're at it. All right. I think, let me get back to my agenda. I think we're done with the cases. Let's go into the working group reports. Let's start with the water and sewer working group. Jim, would you mind giving us an update?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So we met on January 20th. It was online only. Basically, what I do for the first meeting of the year is I just kind of go over an overview of what the purpose of the working group is and our relationship to the main committee here. So I did that. Just kind of provided an overview of what we do as far as the water and sewer goes. And give a quick update on the cases that were approved with the help of Gordon. And we're update on the new specs that are out for January. And what else? So Gene brought up a thing about because we now have PEX is now a available material or a material in MAG. So that I guess one of the manufacturers there's a class action lawsuit. So he just kind of gave us an FYI on that. So. And then I talked about the miscellaneous corrections standard, the first case of the year we do. So this, as anybody goes through, if they have any bloopers or typos, they're going to bring it to our attention, so we can get it on the main committee here as part of that case. Then we just kind of went and covered briefly what I want to try to address this year. We've been talking about expanding the testing. Sewer video testing, we needed some more, we wanted some more specs for that, as far as how that's set up and reviewed. Maybe revive a mandrel discussion we had, just stuff like that for the testing. They covered air testing pretty good. But there's just some stuff that's missing, I think, that we want to get into MAG. I know Rob Godwin from the city here has been working with the city of Phoenix and their group that does a video. And so I think we're going to try to take some of that spec and see how it went, because the city of Phoenix have been doing it for a number of years, probably, as you know, Mr. Chairman. So we want to try to not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but just kind of get some specs nailed down and get it in the MAG. So what always happens is, we have issues and the contractor says, well, where does it say that type of thing? So it just needs to be nailed down as it should be. So we're going to try to work on that this year. What else came up? Some other possible cases. I think that we need to update a few ASTM standards that the industry's brought up on ductile iron pipe. So that you'll see probably that come forth, just as we do a lot of all the other stuff with ASTM updates, just to keep MAG current with the national standards.
All right. I guess the question.
That's about it. We're going to meet. Our next meeting will be online on Teams on February 17th, later on.
And just to kind of get an update on Jim and the agenda that's shown on the screen, there's some discussion about, I think this leads back to extra protection and discussions with the county and ADEQ.
Yeah, we'd like to maybe resurrect that. I understand they're going through some revisions. So we might want to participate with the county on that. Hopefully this is a chance to finally update that old, was it 1970s? Bulletin 10 and 11. So maybe we can do that. But yeah, the extra protection thing really needs to be updated. As most cities that contractors really struggle with the old-fashioned concrete encasement. I really don't think that's true encasement. And then it's very difficult to build in the field, and so that's a good point. So.
All right. Thanks for that, Jim. Peter, can you give us an update on the outside working group?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. We had our meeting on January 22nd, the first of the year. Gordon gave us the update on the existing MAG outside right of way, the updates that have been incorporated into that document that's now available on the website. We hit the ground running this year because we had some things in the queue ready to go, at least in terms of ideas or concepts we've been working on. So the riprap spillway detail, we've got the existing concrete spillways. Now we're moving into the riprap. Did a review of those and asked that anybody in the working group, if any more comments, let's get them in so we can finalize this in our meeting this month in February, with the goal of having a case brought forward in March. So our goal is in March we're going to be bringing everything forward to you guys to have an actual case going on those riprap spillways. The other one that has a great deal of energy going on are the detention tanks. We finished the detail last year on a single CMP. Now we're moving into several ones. Mr. Chairman, of course, you're intimately involved with these, which is the multiple barrel option for the CMPs. And then the other types of detention tanks are now moving forward. The precast option has probably got the most work that's been done on them. and that should be continuing to move forward. We're hoping to bring that one forward. I think we'll plan to bring that one forward this year. There's some discussion on backfill to make sure everything was consistent on that. And then, of course, the other one would be, in addition to the precast, we've got the cast in place details that, or I'm sorry, into the cast in place, we've got the precast detail, which industry is bringing forward. That's Adriana Lash that she's working on. We'll try to do that. The idea is we have all of these parallel now. So we got the basic hard work done last year. This year we get to now start expanding that and filling in everything that we hadn't done before. Probably the only thing that'll be missing this year will be the polymers and things like that. But I think good progress on that. The other items we'd probably be working on, Wayne Colbank brought up the need for more clear standards regarding riprap aesthetics, placement, and that hasn't been touched in decades. So Wayne is going to start working on that and hopefully have something to present to us in our February meeting on looking at the updating of Section 220. The handrail design, obviously you talked about that. That was brought up in the working group and then handed over more to others to work on. So that's already been discussed. And then again, we talked about looking at coordinating any other ADA, just like I was bringing up potentially, is there something on the ADA we need to look at on outside the right of way? We kind of left it at that for this meeting. I think we had quite a bit to work on. We're going to try to expand to other areas that we talked about doing probably in this next meeting, which is scheduled for February 19th. I'm open to any questions.
I guess, when's the next meeting that we have?
February 19th at, what's our time? 10:30, a virtual meeting. I think it's the 19th is the Thursday. I'm kind of losing track of time. I've been sitting at home for so long, for 3 straight weeks with a knee replacement. So
I'm trying to remember also if you
19th, yeah.
need an extra week to push that back because of your surgery or not, but
yeah, I'm doing great. No, as of Friday, I get to start driving. So no, the knee replacement's gone fantastically well. I just finished therapy before this, and I'll be out and about well before the next meeting on the. So I'm easily able to start working on stuff now.
Well, glad to hear that you're recovering, Peter.
Yes. Relatively pain-free. I've heard a lot of people have a lot of pain. I really didn't. So, no, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Next working group, Asphalt and Materials Committee, Alex.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our last meeting was on January 15th. We talked primarily around 326 and 719, the final changes to bring forward on that today. No new potential cases came up at that point. We did have some general discussion about an approved list. We have seen McDOT moving forward with publishing an approved list. We know the city of Phoenix has one and Mesa has one, and still as a group collectively looking at how we could potentially have something that really encompasses the majority of MAG. One of the things that McDOT brought forward, not necessarily in that meeting, but a challenge they had with their approved list was actually ADA compliance regarding their approved list and making sure that it was able to be viewed and or understood online. So that was something, just, I don't know if somebody here might be able to potentially help them or has experienced and gone through that themselves. So beyond that, our next meeting will be on Friday, February 19th. It is a hybrid meeting. We're trying to get as many people there in person as possible. So we typically provide lunch. So whatever you guys, whoever wants to come, you're more than welcome and appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. I think last ADA working group, Warren.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. We met on January 22nd and had a good turnout again. Open up the discussion to, again, the normal procedures of the current cases in play. No current ADA cases at this point. We did some introductions. I gave a brief update on where PROAG is. Nothing has changed from last year. It still is still in the final state. It is adopted and registered in the code, but it is not yet enforceable by the DOJ. but it's still considered as best practice where we left it last year. So still moving forward with ultimate adoption by the DOT and DOJ, but at this point, that's where it's at. Then we moved on to some of the cases that we had looked at last year and talking through some of the potential changes to the ramp details. One of the items was to avoid the situations where you might encounter a skewed ramp where the top and bottom grade breaks are not perpendicular to the direction of travel. And also some of the issues where you may not have a flush situation at the crossing at the gutter pan. So as we looked at those and these ramp details themselves are getting very busy with a lot of information on them. So I think Jose brought up, or we might look at, and I've seen some other agencies that have separate details for some of the information. So we're going to look at maybe that instead of trying to clutter up more information on the details, but that's still in discussion. And then also onto the crosswalk detail, I have a potential case, which sees next, we can talk more about that. And then also we talked more about the bike ramps. Some of these items and the speed cushions, there's not really a good home for these. So they kind of found their way in the ADA group, but the bike ramps it's a ramp. So, okay. There may be some industry support since there is some interest in having bike ramps as a detail. So we might see a draft of that in our next working group. So we'll see on that. Then talked about the scupper detail, detectable warning. So that's the bulk of it, I think. Is there anything more substantial than that?
No, I was just gonna add, since we have Brian in the room, the cushion details, Brian, I think part of the conversation was that each agency has their own specific detail and we all have different tapers, different height requirements and all that. So there is challenges to actually pave those to begin with, right? Especially.
I thought, started, tried to get them all, with the fire department, was really
Can't hear.
dictating what that was gonna be, right?
Oh.
I mean, and that's why there were so many different ones, right? Is trying to get the fire chiefs to agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so, but yeah, most contractors have gone, they have their separate templates for each city of what they gotta use to be in compliance with theirs and with their tolerances.
And all the trucks have the same wheelbase,
Yeah.
right? So it should be same.
Right. I think next item is potential cases, Warren. I think you have a couple
Yes.
to discuss.
The first one in the packet is the beginning of the tracer wire revisions that now that Chandler has implemented the new tracer wire case that was adopted last year. We of course encountered a few things that probably need to be revised to clarify for contractors. One particular one is the placement of the grounding rod and some of the connections, in particular in the meter box, some of the things that we've learned through this process. So this is just a piece of it. I'll be having one of our engineers in our team who's also going to be presenting on tracer wire at the water and sewer. What's the next event coming up in April? Why am I forgetting the name?
AC Water?
AZ Water, yeah, AZ Water. So there'll be a presentation on tracer wire by Katie Gall. If you're all interested in that, that should be interesting. Some of the things that we've learned through this process. So this is just a piece of it, but I have a feeling it'll affect, it's going to be a big case and we've drafted it out. We'll be presenting at the next water and sewer working group, kind of getting their input on that. So that's part one case.
All right, and there's a couple more cases.
Correct. There's a
Right.
couple that weren't in the packet that I sent to Gordon today that I wanted to
Yeah.
get some.
Will you be able to pull them up, Gordon? There you go.
All right. This is one that we talked about last year. One of the changes in the final PROAG was the crosswalk allowances between the ramps and where you have a clear space. I wanted the larger committee's input on this. If this is the, number one, is this the right place to do this? Could be the separate detail that we spoke to. But I feel like we need to cover this because if you're gonna have a crossing, you know, yeah, there's some requirements in PROAG about the clear space. You have to have 4 foot minimum, you know. And then there's some allowances for the type of slope. It depends on if it's yield or stop controlled. So the marking, we all have a little agency, each agency may vary in how we mark it, the placement, but this is just to depict the fact that the turning space on a radial ramp has to be fully within the crossing. So that's the intent of having it here. But so number one, I just wanted to get everyone's input. If you felt like, number one, if this is a case we should move forward. And if you have any thoughts on if this is the best place to do this or another method.
Yeah, so I'd like to ask any of the members that are here or online, if you guys any thoughts on how to potentially, or first, I guess the question is this needed? And second, is this the best place?
Warren,
Mr. Chairman, Warren, that's not a bad idea. I don't know, are you saying we want to put it, add to this detail, or should we have a separate detail for crosswalk alignment?
That is the question, if this is the best placement, or if you think, Jim, if it would be better suited to create another detail for crosswalks.
Well, it's related, but I think the problem is you're going to get too busy, as you can see already. So it may be better to have a separate detail, because it might apply to different details. So you're just going to be replicating it on all the details. So maybe you just do a separate detail for crosswalk alignment and try to cover as many ramps as you can. So that'll be my thought.
Thanks for that input, Jim. Brian, were you gonna say?
Warren, the percentage of slope, are you talking about in the yellow hatched areas across, or are you talking the actual ramps?
No, that's actually, it's related to the yellow hatched area. But you're right, there are some also allowances for the cross slope of a ramp if you're in a situation where you have a lot of vertical.
Where we're running into challenges is all your folks is mill and overlay,
Yeah.
right?
Built to that.
Because, and the only ones who's really addressed it is Phoenix, where they're having us, they're not maintaining, they're maintaining the existing slope, not to say, so in other words, instead of just cutting a termination and raising the road profile up 1.5 inches or an inch, they're maintaining whatever it is. Now, we're not going through and grading it to a percentage of slope, but at least we're not raising it. No, so going down this road might be challenges on when you're in your overlay program,
Right.
or your any kind of seal coat, if you're sandwich or chipping or anything.
This is really a new construction, but
See?
if you get into the alterations, you're right, then you're
Correct.
You're not, I don't think the expectation is that you're gonna regrade the road.
Well,
necessarily.
but they're trying to maintain.
Yeah.
I mean, this was just something that was implemented by Phoenix a few years ago. They just says, hey, all crosswalks have to be made full width, across, and come back a certain distance to try to maintain that existing slope. Right. And that's what I'm saying. I think this is for new, but I think some people are interpreting it as existing out there right now.
And that's a bigger topic, like in a mill and overlay.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was the goal for the city of Phoenix, to take, to get us close to this requirement of maintaining a 2% cross slopes on a yield or stop condition. So like on a side street, that's why they're requiring a full width mill at those locations. But again, is like Warren was saying, right, it's not correcting the issue, because in some of those cases, they're not getting less than 2%, because typically, depending on the drainage, how the project was designed, those ramps can't be steep to begin with. So at least the intent is not to make it any worse.
Correct.
But
Not to maintain what was there, right? You don't know the rest of the profile, mid-block, crossing, the whole thing, right? They just we just have to mark it out, says, okay, we're gonna have to flatten out the roadway here, or maintain it when the overlay comes through. So, just something to think about as you're going down this road.
Fair enough.
And to your point, some of this, it is more of a design issue than it is a constructability issue, right? Because you as a contractor don't control the grades of what you're building. And that's kind of the conversations that we've been having, right? But it's like, how do we incorporate all these requirements to make sure, as a whole industry, we're all aware of it. But does anybody else have any other comment or a thought on the need of the placement of this information?
Mr. Chair, I'd be in support with what Jim had mentioned, having a separate detail. To put this across all the details and to maintain it, I think it'd be a lot cleaner just to have one separate detail.
Yeah, the working group, we're realizing that there's a lot of fine tuning and fine
Yeah.
detailing that needs to accompany a lot of the different ramp styles. So that's where
And
we're,
to Jim's point, this is gonna get so cluttered up, nobody's gonna be able to understand it except for the ones that wrote it.
and even then, right?
And again, I've seen some more elegant ways to do this in other agencies but would be a complete overhaul of all of the details. That's the other thing. And the other thing we talked about is creating some more of the 3D views of these. I think that's something Josh has suggested, which will help visualize this a little more too, so.
Isometric views on the more challenging ramps,
Right.
definitely in the perpendicular ramps.
Well, thank you for that.
And do you have one more
One more.
case? You wanted some
One more.
input?
The other, and I didn't mention this in the ADA, one of the other items in the working group was the desire to add a detail for the accessible on-street parking into MAG. This is based on Chandler's detail. And this is more of a working progress at this time, but I wanted to share it, see what your thoughts were. As one thing I like about taking our Chandler details and making them into MAG, then I find out things like, ooh, we should have done this, that, so it's a good process, but. So, this is both for accessible angle parking, and then the parallel. What's missing is a perpendicular case. We can add that. This is based on parking with bulb outs that we've used in our downtown. Kind of have to look at, this probably will be definitely a Scope Creek type of case, because I'm sure we're gonna have to account for other types of ways that these on-site, but I'll share also the parameters for PROAG on when you have to place these. I'll add that to the case header when we do the formal case submittal. Anyway, just putting it out there. Does the main committee agree that they'd like to see a detail like this as well?
I don't think it hurts anything. I think it helps everybody. I don't know where I would be fitting one in downtown Glendale. We don't have enough sidewalk real estate, but
No, but I think,
Rule is if you have any marked, metered, any type of parking, then this opens the door where you then have to have some on a block base.
I think what it would help, again, if the committee members think there is a need also, if there have been any agencies that have installed parking and what that configuration would look like, because what Warden was saying, this is very specific to Chandler. Not all municipalities will have the bulb designation, but there might be other examples we can borrow to come up with somewhat of a standard.
Mr. Chair, I'm not saying I'm opposed to these details, but in my mind, I've always thought of MAG standard specifications and details being construction details. How do you construct a certain element?
Mhm.
And both this and the last one, now that I think about it, are more conceptual design concepts. They're not details telling you how to construct something. They're telling you how to design. Where do you place striping, or where should you put a flat slope versus a not flat slope? There's not a lot of construction to these. Again, I'm not necessarily opposed, but it's just kind of shifting details that I've traditionally expected or seen in the MAG documents into a design manual type of detail. So just something for thought.
Oh, that's a great point, right? Because I think.
This particular detail would have all the construction callouts on it, but ultimately, yeah, if that's desired.
Yeah, because I do share your sentiment that the specifications and the details should be construction related. We can see how applicable that is, but I think overall, there is a lot of construction information that can be added to this to make them construction detail. But I think obviously we're starting from what Chandler has built and this is what they have, and we can definitely
piece of
expand
it,
it
yeah.
to that. Yeah.
But yeah, you brought up a good point, Ryan. As I was looking at this, I'd have to put limits, because I mean, if you're gonna be putting this type of parking, you have kind of the pay limits of this as well, you know? So we need to define that.
I see Peter, yeah, behind that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing on construction details. You'll need information on the striping paint. I've done details like this for parking lots before. You'll need that kind of information for construction. The material requirements. Somewhere is going to have to be referenced.
Okay, so a little bit more work, but a lot more work. Thank you.
All right. Staff report, Gordon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple quick items. The 2026 revision is online since last month, but we do have the purchase page now open. So if you want to order hard copies to update your books or update packets to update existing books, you can do that now. The binders were on back order, so they're supposed to be delivered by next Wednesday. So if you need binders, there might be a slight delay, but you can go ahead and order them and we'll ship them out as soon as we get them. So that's the first item. Trying to remember what else I was going to mention. Oh yes, the supplemental specifications and details for all the city agents, member agencies. I went through and checked these and updated a few of them. So they should all be the most current ones when you click on the link. But if you happen to notice that your city is going to an old page or it needs to be updated, please let me know and I'll update those links as well. That's all I have.
Using this page this morning. All the links that I clicked worked, so
Good.
I was doing some research.
Yeah, I think it is a useful kind of a clearinghouse to find everybody's supplements.
It is useful. Next item, general discussion on general topics related to specifications and construction. I do want to let some of the members know, I think we're planning a presentation, right, Gordon, in relation to fiber reinforced concrete. I don't know if we secured the date for next month. Did you ever hear back?
I think they are planning on for the March meeting, yes.
Yeah, so if you can make an extra effort to attend, I think we'll have Dr. Mubashir from ASU come here and present. So
can I throw in a few things?
sure.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple things. Jim, are you available? I see you there. You're off the phone. I shared this with Gene earlier. Years ago, we were pursuing the extra protection question, Jim, that you brought up earlier. And I was able to have in my possession a City of Phoenix project where they put a force main sewer line in a tunnel with a 78-inch water line. So we actually have evidence of it being approved by ADWR. And I was excited to hear that. I was excited to see that and encouraged because we now have case of where it was used. So I'll hand these out to you if you want them. I'll bring it to the MAG working group, but it gives us some good information going forward on what we can pursue to look at doing that in the future to hopefully help agencies cut down on multiple tunnels were the need for potentially one tunnel to carry water and sewer now. Because that's always been one of the struggles, is we got to put in these tunnels, separation minimums, all this kind of stuff. And if we can just do one tunnel and put multiple casings to carry the water sewer, why not? It's now precedent. It's being done. You guys did it. Congratulations.
Yeah, that would be good.
What?
Go ahead, Jim.
That's it. I'm having a hard time hearing you guys. I got my volume all the way up. So
Is that better?
yes.
I've got good news for you, Jim. I'll show you at the working group.
Okay, well, yeah, we need, I don't know, remember there was discussion I think the last general meeting about the counties?
Right.
I remember I got an email from, maybe it was, I forget who I got it from, but the county's looking into, doing some modifications.
Yes, and that's what we'll talk about at the working group. I've got some good information here now that we can present on how it's been done and what we can do to make it better.
Okay, great.
Okay. Second thing is just following up the last year's approval of the MAG 602 improvement with regards to adding additional casing materials for the agencies. I realized reading through it that I did not follow through thoroughly and changed some of the language properly. So I've just got, it'll be a case most likely, but I'll bring it up to the working group. But it's just adding in the language of allowing for steel or CC FRPM casing now instead of, because before the language was just still steel. It wasn't allowing for the new material that was approved. So it's going to be just more of a language cleanup, but we'll talk about that in a working group just to make sure there's no issues there.
Okay, yeah, if you could send me that stuff briefly, I can put it on the agenda.
I will. Yep.
I was gonna
Okay,
say,
great.
clean up and all the other materials are referenced on the other sections. We might just be able to handle as a miscellaneous, correct?
And that's what I wanted to run it by the working group first to make sure they're okay with it. And if they are, then we'll present that accordingly. But I don't want to just assume anything. So I'll start with them, but just giving you heads up on that. Just
Right.
trying to make it accurate because I realized I made some mistakes and not being thorough.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else has anything they want to share?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I'm looking at the agenda here. Did I miss the opportunity to talk about maybe see the appetite for a new case on
That's our
something?
next item, but
Okay.
I think Warren has something he wants to share before we move on.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to open it up. Alex, I wasn't able to attend, but my colleagues were, and it sounded like you had a good turnout at the ASU forum on the
Yeah.
topic of the pavement.
On the,
plans and-
thank you, I appreciate that. On January 23rd, ASU on the Southwest Pavement Consortium hosted a forum for improving asphalt design and specifications in Arizona. I believe several agencies in attendance today were also there as well. A few of the things that were discussed was the importance of joint density, potentially an approach, and even how industry can go back and consider processes or applications to improve joint density or compaction at the joints. There was discussion on volumetric changes, specifically increase in binder, whether that be done through reduced laboratory air voids or an increase in VMA. Also the talk about fine graded mixes and reduction in permeability and making sure that the asphalt's going to be durable. Standardization, which is always near and dear to my heart, and consolidation of specifications and how many different things that are happening. And then discussion on lift thickness. Are we using the appropriate aggregate sizes in the appropriate applications, especially in regards to overlays, and whether we should be employing more 3/8 mixes over ½ inch. Nothing firm. This was a lot of brainstorming. This was our first meeting, our first chance to get together. We are going to be scheduling a follow-up meeting to this where we can really drill down into some of these and prioritize them. And it's a great opportunity to have conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Great point. All right, we can move on. Jim, do you want to go into a request for a future agenda item?
Yeah, I'd like to see what the appetite is for a new case related to doweling when you do concrete replacement. You know, I know MAG covers a lot of new construction and that, but obviously we deal with a lot of, reconstruction and removal and of some partial, improvements that have to get replaced. And one of the things we always struggle with is like when replacement of aprons, valley gutters, and driveways, anything subject to vehicular traffic is that we like to see doweling done, to restore the the integrity of the section being, so it's monolithic as it was placed. So I didn't see anything in MAG that addresses that. And so I'm kind of looking for direction as, where would we even, start a case on that? Which section should that be in? And is that something that we should have in there? I think it's something that's frequent, on this concrete replacement. We know we got a section, in was it MAG 336 for asphalt replacement? I don't know. I just think we should add something to it. So I'm just kind of get a feel for the group, see what they think about something like that.
I guess to Ryan's point earlier, the only thing I would say first, when you're talking about dialing, are we just kind of sticking to general flat work? Because obviously at one point we're talking about structural. That's probably where we need to lean more on designers. But is that where you have an idea? Valley gutters and simple concrete items?
Yeah, this would be mainly for flat work. So aprons, maybe, I don't know about curb and gutter, but for sure aprons, driveways, valley gutter, that type of thing. Anything that's subject, any flat work that's subject to vehicular traffic. Is if we don't do it, we just see differential settlement, and it's like, well, why? Because most of this stuff is placed, monolithically, and so when you saw cut it, for whatever reason, trenching or whatever, and they try to replace it, to me, we always try to make sure they dowel it. So, I don't know if we just leave it up to supplements on that, but I don't know, something like that's so common, I think it should be in MAG as far as, okay, when you take out this section of concrete, this is how you go to the nearest joint and you got to dowel it in, and, some kind of specs that address that, so.
I'll let Peter go first, Brian.
So PCA has standard guidelines and even some standard drawings and details on doweling and also in retrofits. So PCA may be a good starting point to look at some of their recommendations. I've used those in the past very successfully.
Okay, could you maybe, if you have that handy, Peter, could you email it to me?
I will look to see if I can find it. I should be able to start getting in an office next week to go plow through all my stuff. But
okay,
yeah, I'll put that on my list of stuff to go find.
Did you said the PCA?
Yeah, PCA, Portland Cement Association.
Okay, I could probably maybe look it up too. So, all right.
Okay.
Good place to start. So,
Brian, were you gonna share something?
Yeah, Jim, are you mostly seeing it in like new subdivisions that they're trying to do punch list work and you're having to do removals and then you want to see doweling there? Or are you talking about older subdivisions that people might go in there and put a Google line in and you want some things repaired back to the way it was before they started their trenching?
it's both. Sometimes, yeah, the new construction and newer neighborhoods is good, but we run into a lot with commercial developments. Like we go in and we put in some major improvements, like we redo McDowell Road, and then we have development that comes in, and if you want to call it tenant improvements or whatever, but they want to go out and add driveways, remove driveways, modify driveways, and so we just end up with, we tell them, well, you got to take the whole thing out, and then they push back and say, well, why? We just want to pour up to it, and that's the concern I have as well. We need to make it monolithic, so either remove the whole thing or you dowel it, and so it'd be nice to have some kind of a spec to enforce that.
So, I mean, the big commercial driveways, a lot of times they do them they do them in sections. A lot of times it's mandated because we got to maintain the driveway anyway, so we got to do it in sections. But what I've seen in most cases is it's a contractor's choice. Either they can take it to the nearest construction joint, or if they want to do less than that, then they have to dowel it. But I've never, I mean, you saying you're still having problems when they take it to the construction joint and you see movement that they got to dowel it?
Yeah, it just depends on the location, but like you're going through a section of it. They only want to go take half the road out. So right in the middle of the driveway, you've got some heaving that's going on because the concrete is not monolithic anymore. So
okay.
So one thing, Jim, Jose, we've always veered away from doweling for two reasons. One, you don't know what's doweled and what's not. So if you try to pull a panel out at a at a joint that you think is a cold joint, it's doweled, you break the panel next to it. 2, with the differential settlement, depending on the size dowel, the thickness of the dowel, potentially damage the panel next to it as it's moving. With the valley gutters and the aprons, any cold joint like that should have a sleeper pad under it to keep that differential movement from happening. But then again, I don't know if you guys are having materials testing related issues, or you're not getting compaction under the new stuff, proper moisture. There could be a variety of things. I know we're not talking about any one specific location, but in the past we've always, and then the other thing is, do you use, is a number 3 bar a dowel? Is a 1/2-inch rebar a dowel, or is it a slip dowel, or do you want to specify slip dowels? Now we've used slip dowels in some applications for bus bays, 9 inches thick, but they were also poured monolithic too. I mean, they were poured, well, not monolithic, I'm sorry. They were poured in stages like what Brian had described. One day, pour a section of it, a segment of it, put in a set of slip dowels, and then do the next segment. But for repair work, we've always veered away from, we try to veer away unless there's a real compelling reason on why we need to dowel it.
I think to Jim's point, I think he's looking for, because I don't know that it's called out wide across flat work that is subject to vehicle traffic, that at a construction joint, whether it's new construction to new construction or retrofit work, that you're supposed to provide some shear element, right? Some
Right.
shear prevent.
Sleeper pad, yeah.
New
New
sleeper pads
construction.
become more challenging when it's tying old to new, right? Because
Right.
you really can't really undermine and get a good sleeper slab under that. So that's where the dowel condition will probably come a little bit more handy, but it could be a case. Yeah, but there's probably some engineering. I know there's a lot of field engineering going on out there, because it does happen.
We're all engineers out in the field. Imagineers.
Imagineers, yes.
All right, well, that's good discussion, but no, yeah, Gene, it's for when you're breaking, when you're saw cutting through a solid piece anyway, so if you didn't cut it, you'd still have to remove it, would still be monolithic anyway, so you're just trying to restore the integrity of the monolithic slab that was there before. So I guess it's more of an R&R, where you have to cut something out because it's cracked or damaged, or, they had to put a trench through there, or, that type of thing. We run into that a lot too, trenching, or they do 2 potholes for fiber or something. So, we tell them to go to the nearest joint, and they're right in the middle of a major driveway, and, they're just pouring it back. And so they've taken a monolithic slab, and now you've cut this, you made it where you've got, 2 separate floating pieces. And so that's our concern, is that really it should be made, monolithic, and the cheapest way is just to dowel it instead of redoing the whole thing. So I was just looking for a common spec for that, if that's even doable.
Well, if you're replacing we probably ought to look at the definitions. We agree on the definitions anyway. If you're going to a construction joint, then you're technically a cold joint. Now, if you're going to a control joint and doweling in there, if it was a cold joint, theoretically, it's still a cold joint, but now you just want to dowel the cold joint, right?
No, this would be for like a construction joint where it's, like I said, it's still monolithic. There's no break in the concrete.
So it's more of a control joint.
Or
Okay.
control, yeah, I'm sorry.
Crack control joint. Okay.
Mr. Chair, one other future agenda item. It sounds like the March meeting may be taken, but I would like to propose related to what Alex was speaking to. It's generally wants to help support the good efforts of the industry and Mesa moving in that direction of the polymer modified asphalts and the consolidation of the mixed designs. We see the light and the benefits of all that. So haven't quite figured out the makeup, but wanted to propose that presentation coming maybe April, where we kind of talk that through. It seems like this would be a good starting point. We've talked about it in the past year or two anyway, but just get everyone's input on that, and then how to take that up the to our agencies and get everyone to buy in on these mixed designs and help make this happen. So that presentation might we'd have a good discussion at that time.
What's that? Hassan, like? did they get-
Yeah,
I can reach out to him and see if he'd be willing to present.
yeah, it's on. Yeah, and we're happy to assist. I'm sure Mesa, Matt, we all can take part and answer questions, but I know Mesa's done a lot of good things to be a front runner and testing these different products, and we'd like to finally get back on board.
Anybody else has an item for future agenda? Nope. Just wrapping up, comments from the committee. Anybody else has anything to add related to current topics? Or not technical items that they want to share? No? With that, I think we'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone, for participating.